friends, welcome to the 12 Days of Tools. Today is day 7 of those 12 days, and today is kind of a special day because I'm going to be talking about a drill. Now this is going to be the only power drill that I'm going to recommend that you consider acquiring for your tool collection. There's lots of reasons why, and let's get on into it. So I'm going to preface by saying I'm just going to be touching on information on the drill, just giving a real high level overview of kind of what it is and how. I'm not going to be getting into details about a lot of the intricacies of it. That's going to be something that will come down the line. So in front of me right here, I have 3 drills. And one is, I've actually had this one since before my kids were born, and it still works very well, and it's a good old Black & Decker corded drill. It's what, you know, your husband or brother or father would have in a garage. You find them in lots of garage sales, and they still work very well. This is a corded drill. This is a battery operated drill, and this is a battery operated driver. The big difference between these 3 units, other than one is corded and 2 are battery operated, which is a whole nother series, is the chuck. So with the chuck is what holds a bit onto a drill. So a drill has really 2 purposes: to screw something into things or unscrew, and to drill holes into things as well. And that's done by a bit, whether it's a drill bit that's kind of like a sharp twisty knife, or a screwdriver bit attached to the drill by way of the chuck. So in this one, this is the chuck here, this black thing is the chuck here, and this little collar is the chuck here. With most corded drills, you have what's called a keyed chuck, and it's a little geared mechanism, little T crossbar mechanism that's usually clamped onto the cord. And on these keyed chucks, you have 3 holes evenly spaced along the chuck. What you have to do is put the key into that chuck to loosen it off. One loosen will take it right off, and you just twist it. Once you relieve the tension with the key, then you can twist the collar quite easily. And there's 3 little clamps in here that open up and close, and that's what actually holds the bit into the drill. So when I put this bit back in and I tighten it up, I'm going to tighten it up as far as it'll go with just my fingers, and I've got to tighten it with the chuck or with the key. So I'm going to put that into the chuck and twist it as much as I can in each hole. It's very important that you give the same amount of pressure in each 3 of the holes, and then that will give that'll make your device really safe to use. So that's the premise of a keyed chuck. So I'm going to put that aside because that's probably the only difference between, other than the obvious cord and battery, between these 2 units of drills. Now drills also have a forward and a reverse, so you can put things in and take things out. There's lots of other buttons that we can get into, but it's something you have to appreciate with battery operated drills is when you see them in the stores, there's usually 2 together. It's sometimes there's just the one, and sometimes there's the 2. And oftentimes they're referred to as a drill and driver combo, or a drill and driver set. The big thing to recognize on that, all drills are drivers, but drivers are not drills. So the drill will do the job of a driver, but the driver will not do the job of a drill. So when would I want to use just a driver? Say I'm doing a deck, and I'm going to be just screwing holes into the deck. Or I'm framing a house and I've got a lot of 2x4s and I'm just driving screws repeatedly over and over. That's when you just want the driver, because that's really going to be your only task. There's different qualities that make a driver better for that job. We're not going to get into what those qualities are, but just know that the driver is meant for that purpose. And the other difference between the drill and the driver is the chuck. So with the driver, it's got a very easy to release chuck, and it's just a collar that pulls back and forth, and when you pull it, the bit pops right out, and the bit has a little notch in it, and so when you have to pull the collar back out to put your bit back in, snap it on, and then your bit will stay in there. A drill doesn't have that feature because it's the 3 prongs that when you twist it will hold the bit into place. So drills have, for the most part, always actually will have a reverse and a forward and a neutral. And this is a drill is a variable speed tool, so that means you can control how fast it's going to spin. Now, one thing that I want to point out, it's really important with drills, even though it looks like it's not a overly dangerous tool like a saw might be, it actually is. The spinning force of the bit can be really dangerous. So if you're around it, you want your clothes to not be dangling, to not have loose cuffs or scarves, and you want to make sure that your hair is tied back. When you use any tools in the shop, that's always a good bit of advice, but especially with drills, because when this bit is going really fast, like that, if your hair were to get caught in that, it would not be a good outcome. So that's just a little tip on that part. So for the drill, why you may want to use one in your home is if you want to hang a picture, if you want to drill a hole to put a plug into, if you want to reattach a board that has come off. There's lots of reasons why you'd want to maybe have the drill portion and the driver portion of it. When you're drilling holes into wood, we make something called pilot holes. So we'll use a smaller drill bit than the size of a screw so that it's a little bit easier to put the screw in. And I'm going to show you why with an example with these 3 screws here, and I'll show you exactly the difference between a drill, a driver, and the good old red Robbie that we already talked about. So to change the bit on this, what we're going to do is we're going to put it on reverse. There's a little thumb latch here to put it on reverse. We're going to hold on to the collar of the chuck, and we're going to make it go. And your bit will actually fall right out when you do it that way. Then we can put a number 2 Robertson bit into the chuck, and you just hold it into the middle, and you want to make sure it's into the middle. And then you're going to hold the collar so that it can't spin. Put your drill into forward and squeeze your trigger until it's tight, and you let it kind of cinch in there. Hold that as much as you can, and now the bit won't fall out. So this is the advantage of having a drill, a driver, and a screwdriver. If you're putting a screw into a really soft piece of wood, it's kind of easy to put it in, and there's not a lot of force or friction. If I want to attach this wood to this piece of wood, it's a 3-inch or a 2.5-inch screw. It goes up to there. It's going to take a lot of time and effort to use just my little red Robbie. So when I put it in, again, this is not a ratchet screwdriver, so I have to take off my hand, move the hand to make the screwdriver work, or I take it out of the screw and reinsert it. I prefer to just move my hand instead of taking it out of the screw, but 6 of one, half dozen of the other. So when we turn that, as you can see, it takes quite a bit of effort to actually get it in. And when you're doing a lot of them, you can get some really nasty blisters and calluses. So that's why when you're doing repetitive screws in and out, you might not want that to happen. With the driver, this one has just 1 speed, drive speed. So when we put it in, you're going to hear it clicking, and that's as fast as it goes. So you don't be afraid when you hear that clicking. So I'm going to go ahead and drive this screw into this wood. There you go, and it lands flush. That noise is really common for this type of machine, and it will lower the screw into the wood at a really controlled rate of speed. Now with the drill you have to set up. So there's 2 speeds on the top. There's a drill speed, and then there's a drive speed, and then on the collar there's also numbers. It goes from number 4 all the way up to number 20. So if we put it to number 2, we click the little speed to number 2, and we try and drive this, it'll go in really slow. And sometimes if the wood is hard, or if the what you're screwing your screw into is hard, a number 2 won't actually be able to turn it. And this is where you can adjust the gauge of your drill so that it will go into heavier obstacles. So there, you can see it's just spinning, so it got to the point where there's too much force that needs to be applied. So we're going to turn that up a couple notches. And again, it kind of stopped right at the very end, so we're going to turn it up a couple more notches. And at the end there, it gave you that kind of clicking sound. The benefit to that is you won't overdrive your screw. There's 2 terms. I might be getting a little bit technical, and I apologize. But there's 2 terms. There's, if you sink your screw too far, it's really not good. And if you leave your screw too high, if you leave it proud is the term, that's not good either. You really want your screw to be flush. What you heard with this drill was it'll only use that much force, so there's no chance of you over sinking your screw. So it's actually a good thing. That is a high overview of your drills. I hope you want to consider maybe adding one to your arsenal. It's definitely something that I'm going to be covering later on. With the drills, we have lots of options. There's a 8-bit drill set that this will go through every single type of, whether it's wood, concrete, or plastic. And then we can get sets that are a little bit bigger, like this one here. I don't know if anything's open. And then you can actually get sets that are hundreds of pieces. All you need is this 8-set piece. And that's kind of a high-level overview on drills and drivers. If you have any questions or comments, please put them in the comments, and I'd be happy to answer them. Or if you have any experience you'd like to share, I'd be happy to hear that as well. For now, thank you for joining me for day 7 of the 12 days of tools. And because today's Friday, I'm going to be taking today off, or the weekend off, because weekends are for hockey. And I'll be back Monday to continue with day 8 of the 12 days of tools. Thanks very much. Bye for now.